big game for us. I mean, we've lost 3 straight SEC games. We've got to get ourselves back in the mix for a decent seed for the SEC tournament. We've only won 1 true road game this year at Florida. So, can we get back on the winning track in SEC play? Can we play a little bit better on the road? We just had a real poor shooting performance last game. Our guys going to have enough confidence to step up and take every open shot, whether they miss 2, 3, whatever it is. I think there's a lot of questions to be answered. I like where our main group's at right now. I thought, JQ and Shaq and Keon Ellis have been really locked in. I think Charles has been good in practice. I think Rojas and Noah are starting to step up and show some leadership for us. So, I think our guys' heads are still in a good spot. We've got a great chance to get a quality win. Ole Miss is a good team. They've beaten some good teams. They're playing better as of lately. Joyner's back. He's one of the better guards in our league. They got one of the best shooters in the league in Matt Murrell, one of the best bigs in Brooks. So they've got a quality team with some depth on it too. So, in last year, not last year, we played them at home last year. 2 years ago, our first year here, we beat them at their place. I think it was the first time in 8 tries that we had won at Ole Miss. So this typically is a place that Alabama hasn't played particularly well in. We need to come in and play a lot better basketball than, at least on the offensive side, we need to be better than what we've been. Defensively, we need to continue to improve, and we have been better defensively for the most part. It was the last 3 games or so.
All right, thank you, Coach. Let's go ahead and get started with Charlie Potter.
Hey, Coach. You mentioned Charles and playing well in practice. He's obviously coming off a big game against Kentucky. Is that a matter of confidence with him, and how big is that for him to be playing this way down the stretch?
I think it is confidence, as is the case with a lot of young guys. He's starting to find his role, find his niche, what he can do well. He's getting his legs. I feel like he kind of got wore down a little bit, tired. We tried to back him off some, out of practice stuff, get his recovery better. I feel like his legs are getting back up under him better. He's getting more explosive, and he's able to fly around a little bit more. But, yeah, he's making free throws at a pretty good clip now, so he's going to the rim strong, not necessarily avoiding contact. I think he's not afraid of contact, can go through it. He's obviously had to get bigger and stronger in the offseason, but he's playing tough. He's rebounding the ball well now, too.
Nick Kelly?
You mentioned last night about assistants working with some guys, on shooting and stuff. I mean, how does that specifically help when you guys are in a little bit of a shooting rut?
I think guys need to see the ball go through the net, and they need to do it on game-type shots. So with them just kind of coming in on their own and shooting on the gun, or with managers rebounding, I don't think they necessarily go game speed, flying off a stagger, spurting off a flare, whatever, type of shots they may get in the games where, if an assistant's in there with them, they're getting different game-type shots and going full speed and seeing the ball go through the net. And they need to see the ball go through the net hundreds of times and realize that, they're still a good shooter. Let's not start questioning ourselves just because we had a bad game or 2 or bad month even. I mean, NBA players go through long shooting slumps. We just happen to have multiple guys going through shooting slumps at the same time. But, one good game will snap them out of it, and we'll be good to go, I think.
Go next to Mike Rodak.
There seems to be a difference between where, the analytics have you guys, which is pretty solidly in the top 25, versus the human polls where you're not. Just how much do you care about that or pay attention to it, maybe in the context of eventually having the tournament committee, a group of humans, look at you?
Yeah, if you're looking at our resume with the tournament committee, I think they look at the analytics a little bit more than I'm one of the voters on the coaches poll. I try to do a good job looking at it every Sunday night. But I look, they give you like the high ranking and low ranking. I think somebody has Auburn ranked 22nd in the country in the coaches poll. I don't know who. I don't know if they even publish what each coach's ratings are, but I'm not sure how much input I don't think anybody who follows college basketball thinks Auburn's the 22nd best team in the country. So, to me, I would think the committee's not going to look at a poll. They're going to look at, different analytics they've created the net themselves. I believe we're 24th in the net right now. I think we've got the most top 10 net wins of anybody in the country. We, and they've said they want to see teams schedule difficult schedules. We've got the number one strength of schedule in the country, and we haven't just played tough teams and lost to them. I mean, we beat 3 top 10 teams. We beat Houston. We beat Gonzaga. We beat Baylor. Tennessee's up in the top 25, top 15 of the net. LSU's up there. We've got quality wins. So I think that stuff will take care of itself when it needs to be. What our concern right now is how are we playing right now, and can we get to where we're playing the best basketball that we're playing come the end of February and March. So are we improving? Are we getting better? I think our defense is improving. We had taken a big step backwards offensively. We had a poor shooting night, but then you go back and look, did we get good shots? Well, we were 2 for 23 on uncontested threes. Now, did you get good shots for the right guys? I think we do got to get our better shooters more of the uncontested looks as much as possible. So, we're trying to tweak some things offensively to make sure we're getting the guys that should be taking those shots, and getting the turnovers trimmed down and seeing what we can do to help our offense out. But having said that, before the Kentucky game, when we just had a poor shooting night, we were 8th in the country on KenPom offensive efficiency. I think right now we're 16th, so that's how bad of a shooting performance it was. It dropped us 8 spots. But I think the highest Alabama's ever finished was 9th, from what somebody told me. So, if we can get back where we were before this last game, we would have had the most efficient offense Alabama's had in the history of KenPom, which has been 20-plus years. So, people look at the shooting woes, and we are not shooting the ball well. Our offense is still 16th in the country right now on KenPom, so which is better than last year. When last year we finished the year rated 5th in the country in the polls. So, our bigger concern is still our defensive end. How much better can we make ourselves defensively? I think the shots will drop if we get the right players taking the right shots, and we're putting the time in outside of practice.
Steve Moulton.
Coach, if I could get a thought or two on the effort that you've seen out of your team lately. Are you pleased with the overall effort that you're seeing, especially on the defensive end?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I am. I thought, we jumped on Kentucky 9-1. We were playing really hard. I felt like maybe I left a couple guys in. Sometimes when it's going well, you don't go to your rotations early. Maybe I left some guys in a little too long. They got fatigued. The only complaint I'd really have, and I got to do a better job really trying to coach this and, meet with guys and make sure we're in their heads during the game about it, is thought some guys let the shooting performance and the shooting woes maybe get to their head a little bit and let them affect their effort as that game waned on. We were in that game for a while. It just seemed like at that under 12 media, under 8 media, we called the timeout. Those timeouts, you could just sense a little bit. Guys were starting to get a little deflated, where after the game we tried to remind them, we've had bad shooting performances here before. At Missouri last year, we were down 21 with 6 minutes to go in the game. We cut 20 points off that lead in about 4.5 minutes, cut it to 1. I felt like some guys didn't really believe maybe we could come back down 15 with 4 to go or whatever it was, where I think, we just got to get guys to play as hard as they can possibly play for the full 40 minutes. So we've been talking to them about it. Let's make sure our energy's, where it needs to be for the full 40, not just at the start, in the middle, wherever it is, where we go on runs. Just make sure our energy's high for the full 40 minutes.
Joey Blackwell, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. I was just wondering if you had an update on Darius Miles and his eligibility for tomorrow night's game.
He's practiced with us the last 2 days. He's going to be making a road trip. We'll see how many minutes he plays, probably based on some more meetings on the road trip. But he's practiced with us. He's making a road trip with us.
All right, looks like we have one more question left. That's Jerry Tipton. Jerry, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, Nate, I wanted to ask you this kind of a generic question about the mid-range shot and how it seems to have fallen out of favor, if maybe I'm seeing it wrong. But what place does the mid-range game have in college basketball?
There's still a place for it for sure. here's what I would say. I mean, I'm a numbers guy and analytics guy, and the reason you're probably saying it's fallen out of favor is like every NBA team has an entire analytics department now. They're looking at how to, and if you look at the numbers the NBA is putting up, you're seeing the most efficient offenses in the history of the NBA right now. And what they're finding, and I mean, it's not overly complicated, the math. Free throws are the most efficient shot in the game. You make 75% at the free throw line, you're going to get 1.5 points per possession. Well, if you're, and they talk about it per 100 possessions, if you're at a 150, that's going to break all kinds of records. Well, then the next most efficient shots and at the rim, we're close to 65% at the rim. If you're 65% on a two-pointer, you're at 130 points per 100 possessions. That's going to win you almost every game. Then the next most efficient shot is, your kick out threes in the NBA. They break it down very, specific corner threes and all that. But, if you can shoot close to 40% on a kick out three, and we're not there right now, but we've been there in the past where on uncontested threes we're 40%, but that's 1.2 points per possession. Well, if you look at the average mid-range shot in college basketball, the NBA is typically in the mid to upper 30s. So, let's think last year maybe the NBA, you'd have to look it up, was maybe 38%. So if you're shooting 38% on a two-point shot, you're getting 76 points per 100 possessions. You're going to lose like 99% of your games if that's what your offense is generating. So if you've got a guy that's making 50% or more, like Chris Paul last year, for instance, I think, 14-19, 15-19 in one game in the playoffs, and he had a heavy dose of mid-range shots against that drop coverage that they played. There's a time and a place for elite shooters where they should be shooting mid-range because the defense is running them off the line. Bigs back in a drop coverage. They're giving them the pull-up. Well, if you're going to give Chris Paul a pull-up and he's going to make 75% of them, well, that's better than an at the rim too. But the problem with most mid-range is guys are dribbling into it and taking contested mid-range shots that, and they're making 1 out of 3 of them and thinking it's their shot. Well, 1 out of 3, or even 35% on a two-point shot's a 0.7 or 70 points per 100 possessions. That's bad basketball. So I think the guys that have figured out, the efficiency margins, if we're trying to score, 110, 120 points per 100 possessions, well, you can't get a heavy dose of shots that are generating 80 points per 100 possessions. Now, if the defense is dropped back, they're running you off the line, you're getting in late clock situations, there's definitely time to shoot them, even with us. I mean, last year we were the team that shot the fewest percentage of shots mid-range two. We were number 1 in the country at taking the least amount of mid-range twos. We still took 12.5% of our shots were non-at-the-rim twos. So that's still 1 out of every 8 shots. So there's still a time and a place, but there's offenses in college basketball that are generating over 50% of their shots coming on mid-range twos. Well, if over 50% of your shots are that, you're probably running an offense designed to get those shots. And, most colleges don't have analytics departments. They're not, they're running what offenses they've always run, and they're generating shots they've always generated. And I'm guessing, Jerry, what you're referring to is more of the higher level NBA type level analytics. And while why is it falling out of favor there? Because they're trying to get the most efficient offenses in the history of the NBA. That's what they're trying to do right now. So I'm guessing that's what you're referring to. That's probably a long-winded answer that I don't know if that's giving you any type of information you're looking for or not, but that's my thought process on it.
Well, Kentucky talks about Keon Brooks and how he's not making the three at an efficient rate. So, and he can make twos, mid-range twos more efficiently. So take the twos. And so I'm just trying to get a sense of how unusual.
Well, I'll say this, we've played Kentucky, 3 straight years now. And our guys, our first year here, our guys know what we're trying to get. We're trying to get free throws at the rims, threes. So all of a sudden they're watching Kentucky shoot mid-range twos and not contesting them as if that's a bad shot. we get in at the half, like, no, it's a good shot, especially when it's uncontested. The reason the percentages are lower because most of the mid-range twos are highly contested. It's easier to contest a mid-range two. You don't have to close out as far. Well, it's bad defense to sit there and watch guys shoot uncontested mid-range twos. Like, so if Keon Brooks can't make a three, and, you know, if I'm not saying he can, I don't coach their team, I don't see him in practice, but if he's a much better shooter from 18 feet than he is from 22 feet, then he should probably take the 18-footers. And when they're open, they're great shots. And our scouting report, when we played them, like, you cannot give Keon Brooks an uncontested long two. Like, that's bad defense. So it's probably good offense for them to encourage him to take them if he's making those at a high clip, and if he moves back 3 or 4 feet, if he's a much lower percentage. And he's a really good basketball player that needs to be on the floor for them because he impacts the game in many different ways. He can drive the ball. He's a great defender, rebounds it. So if he's making those at a high clip, if I had Keon Brooks and he couldn't make a three and he could make long twos at a high clip, I'd encourage him to shoot them as well.